Hi and welcome. I'm Jennifer Britton. I am the author of Reconnecting Workspaces. Thank you so much for joining me for this quick book club call today. Whether you're looking at this in your organization or using it for as a coach for support for the people that you work with, hope that you're enjoying Reconnecting Workspaces. This book was a labor of many, many years of conversations of professionals, teams, and organizations in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world. Today, I'm zooming into one of my favorite frameworks, which actually I evolved and shared with the world pre pandemic in February of 2020. Little did we know what was around the corner. And in February of 2020, I published what I now call the Remote Working White Paper. Many of you know that in late 2019, I really put a stake in the ground to say that by the end of 2020, I wanted to support the work of 750,000 remote professionals. I have to say, well, I'm still not quite hitting that number yet. It's been amazing to see how my work, my writing has gone out in the world, either through effective virtual conversations, my 2017 book, or my latest, Reconnecting Workspaces. So today we're going to dive into the 7 C's of remote work. If you're a podcast listener, definitely check out the Remote Pathways podcast that I co host. We recently did a 15-minute podcast episode, which went into depth into these 9 layers. So today we're going to talk about the 7 C's of remote work plus 2 hybrid enablers. And when we are moving back to a hybrid environment, what is it that helps us really retain that trust, safety, and connection that I've been talking about in my writing as well as others. So this is a current book spectrum. Maybe you've met me because you're a coach. You've read my first 2 books, Effective Group Coaching, which came out through Wiley in 2009, or From One to Many, which came out in 2013. Since then, I've published Effective Virtual Conversations and PlanDoTrack. PlanDoTrack, in fact, is a workbook planner which is geared to support professionals like yourselves, perhaps, who are operating in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world. Coaching Business Builder will be of interest to those who are a coach. So today we're really looking at sort of building on some of the principles that I've been sharing in this last month. These are calls that I'm hosting roughly weekly, and it is the summer of 2020. Uh, Reconnecting Workspaces was just released about a month ago, really being really well received. And it's grounded in this notion that high performance, especially in the virtual, remote, and hybrid space, is grounded in not only getting results, but also a solid focus on relationships. And this is a framework that many researchers, many authors have shared over the years. If we go right back to Buck and Smith in the 1990s and their work, we know that so many organizations are just pushing for results. Well, that is not sustainable. And again, I think we've really heard in the pandemic about the impact of burnout, the impact of overwork. And so part of the antidote to that is we really want to cultivate solid relationships so that we can have fun while we're working. We may work hard and play hard, which was always a mantra of the teams that I led for many years. And having those relationships can really help us. We also have seen in the pandemic just the immense cost to mental health, physical health of social isolation. Pre-pandemic, there was a lot of research coming out of the UK around the fact that we are social creatures, and that the impact of social loneliness has the same cost as about a half a pack smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day. That's pretty significant. So what are we doing to activate people? And I would invite you to check out the last call on results and high performance. Before we get into today's topic, I just want to share with you a little bit about the content in Reconnecting Workspaces, because I get questions all the time. So Jennifer, it's a pretty big book. It's over 440 pages, which is my typical length. But in this book, I've really laid it out so that in each chapter, and there's 21 chapters in total, ranging from emotional intelligence through to teamwork practices, leadership practices, hosting meetings and presentations, to personal productivity in the virtual, remote, and hybrid space. Each chapter has a principle, also has a myth, a team tool, so actually something that you can be using with your team. There's also a brain tip. I was trained originally as a neuroscientist out of McGill in the late 1990s, or early 90s, late 1980s. We called it cognitive psych in those days. And I've been passionate about looking from a learning landscape, how we learn. And so you might have read in Effective Virtual Conversations, my 2017 book, all that I share in that book around neuroscience and the brain. In Back to Reconnecting Workspaces, in Reconnecting Workspaces, I've also incorporated something I call the 6 questions. And this comes out of my years as a blogger. Many professionals, leaders, and coaches have loved the blog posts that I've done on 6 questions. And each chapter, like emotional intelligence, you'll find 6 questions that you might want to bring into your conversations, whether you're sitting down one on one with someone or whether you're sitting down for a team meeting. So do check those out. And of course, each chapter wraps up with the reconnecting tips. So today's topic is all about remote enablers. And this comes again originally from the remote working white paper that I released in February of 2020, but now it's enshrined as one of the reconnecting tips. I've had the pleasure of sharing this framework with thousands of professionals in this last year. And as we think about remote enablers, what are those things that help you excel? Is it your communication? Is it the clarity of your communication? When things are unclear, especially in a virtual, remote, and hybrid world, we get stuck. We don't know what to do. It causes conflict. It causes disconnection. It causes poor results. So, in the remote space, we really want to be more intentional with clarity, clarity of process, clarity of messaging, clarity of rewards, clarity of goals, clarity of vision and where we're moving to. As you can see, and you're probably looking across this list, there are many that are related to this. So clarity is related to consistency. And one of the things that's so important in today's digital space is that we are consistently engaging in different ideas. So consistency is all about how do we show up? How are we showing up in ways that are really focused and intentional? Another piece is looking at connection and community. So if you've been listening in to some of these Reconnecting Workspaces calls, you might have come across a call where I've shared the 6 layers of connection. You can also check that out at Remote Pathways. And in connecting digitally, we want to make sure that we're connecting on multiple layers. You want to be connected to the topics that you're looking at. You want to be connected with each other. You want to also be connected to the context, because what I'm hearing today north of Toronto may be different than what you're hearing in Lagos or Nigeria. So, what are the things that are helping people connect? Another area with connection is connecting to the application. So, what are the things that are going to help people move the needle in their world of work? And again, in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world, we want to make sure that we're connecting in a way which is impactful. One of the biggest areas which has gotten a lot of spotlight in recent months, even throughout the pandemic, has been about the topic of culture. Culture, in essence, is how do we do things here? If you have a copy of Reconnecting Workspaces, check out chapters 3 and 4, where I dig deeper into really navigating and creating a robust team culture in the digital space. We want to make sure that we're connecting people, but we're activating our culture, which is how we do things. So, what are our mantras? What are our mascots? What is our identity? And how do we know that I'm part of this Zoom call and this team versus another Zoom call and that team? So, look around. High performing elements will have things like background screens, right? And that's something I'm thinking about activating actually as part of Reconnecting Workspaces. So, how do you have a common background which signals, you know what, I'm a member of this team? Culture is everything. As some authors say, culture is king. And so, how are we activating culture in the remote space? One that I haven't touched on, I've touched on consistency and the importance of showing up. And, it might be doing something monthly. Here on these calls, I do something weekly. For other things, it's about consistent messaging across channels. But we also want to make sure that we're doing that so that we help people connect in. Part of that connection, community, is also collaboration. Collaboration is such an important skill set. And you'll notice, again, in Reconnecting Workspaces, that there is a chapter on collaboration. I'm passionate about this topic. We need to do it intentionally and in a way which is focused on what is the purpose of our collaboration? What is our end result? How do we come together? How does what I bring support what you bring? How does that create an added emphasis or amplification? But also, what gap does it create? So be thinking about collaboration and how you can be working together on that. Now, the 7 remote enablers are not enough. And I've been sharing in the last 16 months, 18 months now, really since February of 2021, since February of 2020, pre-pandemic, I've been sharing this framework. Now, it's been interesting because as I've gone to Zoom call and Zoom presentation to Zoom presentation, I've invited people to think about which one of these are important to you right now. And like a wheel, it can change. For some organizations, it's about communication. For others, it's about connection. Yet others, it's about culture and community. I'd like you to think about right now in your work, what are the areas, what are those enablers that are going to get the wheels spinning faster or will be actually getting in the way of making things happen? If you're watching this as a recording, I'd invite you to actually stop this right now and either note what you're going to do to make things happen, or if you're working with teams, think about the area that you want to learn more about. Is it collaboration? Is it consistency? Is it about building a culture? You might be a very experienced practitioner, and I'll invite you to think about what are the tools you have in your toolbox to not only navigate in person or remote, but what about the hybrid? Because in the hybrid, we move from the 7 remote enablers to the 9 hybrid enablers. And you might have listened into our Remote Pathways podcast recently where I shared these. No surprise, because I've said this word a couple of times, intentionality. So for the hybrid space, we want to be very intentional. We need to do things with purpose, whether it's explicit or implicit. And if we don't know where we're going, as Socrates, or maybe it was Seneca said, it's very hard to get there. So we need to be intentional with our focus. We need to be intentional what we bring on the screen. We need to be intentional on what we're able to do with those moments, both planned and unplanned, with people in the in-person and the virtual space. Intentionality is really critical. It can be as subtle as getting into the practice of always inviting those who are in the room to speak first. Intentionality may also be making, and I apologize, I'm going to back up on that. It may be as intentional as inviting those who are on the phone or in the virtual space to speak first, not in the room. We actually want to invite those who are speaking outside first. And then we want to bring the voices in the room, in the physical room, because we want to be making sure that we're really creating an inclusive culture. So intentionality is actually the chapter 1, Reconnecting Workspaces tip. And I'll invite you to think about how that can support you in your work right now. The hybrid activator number 2 is vision. And as many of you know, this is a topic I think I've written about in every book I've published, going way back to 2009. And it really does stem from my belief that in order to get ahead, in order to keep moving, particularly in disrupted environments, we need to have a solid vision. And so as part of this call today, I wanted to share 6 different ways that you might activate vision. And you'll find several of these in Reconnecting Workspaces. Now, as I've found myself saying a number of times in the last year, vision is critical in times of disruption. And while many countries have been feeling like, you know what, they're out of the woods, as we've been seeing in July of 2021, COVID rates are increasing in certain areas. Some places are having to go in lockdown, even places where there has been vaccination or not. So really, what are you doing to create some vision? Because vision allows us to keep moving, even in times of uncertainty. So what is going to help people all look to the same horizon? Vision is out on the horizon. So we don't necessarily need to know how to get there. We may all be in different vehicles, moving at different speeds, on different pathways, but we need to have that shared horizon. So in vision, here are some things that you may want to think about. And actually, several years ago, back in January of 2019, I did an article that you can find at the coaching tools company called 5 Ways to Explore Vision with Groups or Teams! Exclamation mark. So let's go into number one, which is, of course, your vision board. And whether you're using post it notes or you're actually collecting ideas and posting them on a board, there can be a real power in having a shared vision. This is something you could take a photo of, you could bring back and share with the team. We can do it individually or we can do it collectively. Creating a pause in order to think, in order to dream, is really critical. So, what are you doing to activate a vision board in your work right now? Number 1B, as I'm calling it, which is an iteration of the vision board, is something that I've been offering since the beginning of 2021. I'm proud to say that I'm a certified facilitator of the Draw Your Future process. And in the coming months, I'm really excited to be bringing this forward to so many organizations. So, Draw Your Future is a facilitated process that takes people from where they are to where they want to go. And we're going to identify the 3 bold steps that are going to move us there. I've used this with groups and individuals, leaders and entrepreneurs, as well as teams and organizations. And just like the notion of vision, of creating an idea of where we want to go, this creates a visual map. It helps us notice where we are so that we can recognize and celebrate what's happening. We can mourn the things that are also needing to be said. And then we can look ahead to where we want to go. Having this is really important. As Patty Dobrowski, who is the creator of the Draw Your Future, the original creator of the Draw Your Future process, indicates, that activates, having this vision also activates the RAS, the reticular activating system. And that helps us scan. We start scanning information and it helps us know what we pull in to our environment. So if you're wanting to really shift things, there's a school of thought that says put it out on a map, make it visual, put it there in front of you. You also need to be unattached to let it go. And as we do that, we can start seeing the things that are going to help us get there, the 3 bold steps. So my invite is, as a follow-up to today, think about how you might activate the Draw Your Future process. If you'd like a coach to work with you, definitely reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to take you, your group, or your team through this process. I have to say, I have several booked starting in the coming weeks. I'm really excited because I think this is a great way to bring people back together to share and talk about what's been going on and to envision where you want to go, as well as get a bit of a technical roadmap for what it might look like. So that takes us to vision number 2, reflective prompts. And I don't have it beside me today, but many of you are familiar with the reflective prompts that I share in PlanDoTrack, page 99 and 100. In that book, I share 26 different prompts to get you thinking about the future and where you want to go. If you're an individual, you can read through those and set your timer for maybe a minute or 90 seconds or 2 minutes to go forward. If you're on a team, it can be really valuable to be thinking about, how do we want to move forward as a team? And in reflective prompts, those might become conversational prompts. It's something that you can do with a coach in a room or you can do on your own. So think about working with vision in area 2, reflective prompts. A third one, I don't have a photo for it, is guided visualization. And guided visualization really is another powerful way. This can work extremely well with so many. And it can be thinking about, how do we activate what's possible? Shakti Gawan has a wonderful book called, I think, Creative Visualizations. And visualizations are used as a process, not only by coaches, but in Olympic work. So just think about it. The Olympics are on right now. My guess is many of those medal holders have spent weeks and months going through the process, closing their eyes, imagining what that course is going to look like, imagining the win, imagining that feeling. And that's what makes world-class work happen. So it's not just a woo-woo, it is something that Olympic athletes practice every day. So if you want to be a high performing team, what can you be doing to activate guided visualization? What I've loved, and in the last few months, I've been working with a series of coaches who are now certified Reconnecting Workspaces coaches. And I'm growing up the pool of people to go out into the world and take this work forward. Many of them are experts at visualization. So if you'd like me to connect you, by all means, let me know. Another piece is our one-page plan, but this is a team session worksheet. So I like to really take teams through a guided process where they can leave with something concrete, something that they can download, something that they can use. And this is one that I've been using for several years. So it is copyrighted. And if you're interested in getting more resources like this is where that coach certification program comes in. This fall, we'll also be launching a facilitator training program for Reconnecting Workspaces. So maybe you love the book. Maybe you love the fact that there's chapters on all these core leadership topics like, talent management, team management, uh, meetings and emotional intelligence, conflict management, and the skill of influence. Perhaps you want to use the book as part of your leadership development curricula. Well, coming this fall, I'll be training up facilitators, internal and external facilitators, who are going to be able to have the back end knowledge base of this material. There's binders and resources and slides that go along with that. One of the many resources will be an iteration of this team session worksheet. So if you're interested in learning more, please reach out to me, Jennifer Britton, 416-996-8326. And that's my phone number. Yes, give me a call. Let's talk about whether this program's the right fit for you. So Vision Work 5 is a model. And I don't have any with me today, but one of my favorite tools put pre-pandemic or one of my favorite materials, I should say, not tools, was taking aluminum foil or aluminium foil or tin foil to sessions where I would get teams to use it to create a model. Models are visual representations. They help us remember and create a structure of what we are doing. So vision work number 5 is a model, and it's all about how do we create a visual representation of where we want to go. One quick story, years ago, I worked with a team, and as part of our work, they went away from that training with a solar system, which represented their learning and what their guideposts were. They took that solar system, put it in their their lunchroom, and it was really extremely, it was a great anchor for them in the time ahead. Luckily, with that team, I got to meet with them for several years over the course of their development. And so these are the things that we start to hear. What is the impact of our work, and which ones really have traction? And if you know anything about my work, I spent the last 3 decades, since 1988, working with teams and organizations, initially face-to-face and in person, but increasingly as I moved throughout the 1990s into the last few decades, working with teams that were not only intact, but they were hybrid, matrix, regional, global. And it's through the many, many stories that we really start to hear what has true impact. As a practitioner, as a team leader, myself, as a coaching practitioner, I'm always looking at, what is the impact over time? While we have great research, we want to make sure that teams are really moving with the needle. So that takes me to one of my last slides. If you haven't listened in to us at the Remote Pathways podcast, I'd invite you to. As you read through Reconnecting Workspaces, you're going to meet several of the digital dozen, and these are all different professionals, from new remote workers like Ned, who has a new 90-day guide coming out soon, to Joe, his team leader. We've also got entrepreneurs like Serge, the serial remote entrepreneur, and Mel, the coach. For those that are more the Serge and the Mel, don't worry. There's another book coming out in 2022 around digital entrepreneurship. Mel is going to really enjoy my next book coming out in the series, which is the 90-day guide. And the 90-day guide for virtual, remote, and hybrid work is going to take you through 90 days of prompts and exercises to get you going. So with that, a lot on the go, I want to say thank you. I do hope that you'll pick up a copy of Reconnecting Workspaces. It's definitely worth it. And I think in moments like this, why not just equip yourself, but give this as a gift to your team, to your clients. 5 of the core areas I go into include today's workspace, and that includes the foundations for virtual, remote, and hybrid teams. We go into team effectiveness and team practices. It dives into relationship management. So we look at topics like conflict and feedback and project management. These are at the heart of a hybrid workforce. We also look at leadership and teamwork and look at the practices behind it, as well as the many varied conversations which are needed. So I go into chapters on coaching and mentoring, feedback conversations, and talent management. There's a lot in it. And so there are many calls that you can dip into: team tools, results in relationships, 3 ideas for reconnecting, and of course, the 5 engagement levers. As an author, I love bringing this book forward. And I love bringing this out into the world. So go ahead, download a 1-page flyer on Reconnecting Workspaces. See who this can support for yourself, your world, your network. You can go to bit.ly.com/RW book flyer. And perhaps you'll join me for an upcoming coach training and certification program. So that's a 24-hour continuing coach education program. It equips you with the tools and resources to do your best work in the virtual, remote, and hybrid world. And we dive deeply into the resource so that you are confident and comfortable to coach around it. As you heard me say, if you're not a coach, but you're a facilitator, then coming this fall will be a facilitation training program. And I hope that you're really going to enjoy it because the book is robust. I also have a few more surprises up my sleeve in the coming weeks, and I hope that you will enjoy those as they come. So with that, lots of tools, lots of resources. Be sure to follow along at reconnectingworkspaces.com. If you're on Instagram, follow us at Reconnecting Workspaces. And until next week, actually 2 weeks from now, because I don't think there's a call next week, it's a holiday here, so I'm going to take a day off. I look forward to being together with you soon. Be well, take care.